nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome back to the Nerdy Narrative. On this channel, I like to talk about all sorts of bookish related things and all of the different genres that I read in. Whether it be science fiction, fantasy, horror, manga, comics, literary fiction, classics, nonfiction, YA. Honestly, I just really like to spice up my reading life. That way, I never find myself in a reading slump. And even though I do outline a TBR for the month, because I read in so many different genres, it also allows for a bit of mood reading as well. For today's episode of fun, we're almost to the end of June, and that means it's time for the mid-year book freakout tag. This is one that goes around every year around June and July, and they're so much fun to watch. I've seen a few come trickling out already. Last year I was late with it. I'm not missing the boat this time. This year I am out front and ahead with it, and I'm excited to share with you my answers. So question number 1. What is the best book you have read in 2021? Now, for those of you who have seen me do a few tags, because I read in so many different genres, I usually pick an answer for each of those genres because honestly, there's no way I can pick an absolute all-time favorite because there are things about each genre that makes it unique, and I just can't pick one. I can't pick one. But for horror, my favorite book of the year so far is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. If you have not read this beautiful piece of horror, which also is considered literary fiction, I urge you to do so. This book is absolutely beautiful in so many ways. It's a horror story, but it also has an underlying theme that is just, I love this author, and because of this book, I decided I was going to start reading all of his work. I have not been disappointed in anything I've read by him yet. For fantasy, my favorite read of the year so far is The Mask of Mirrors by the author team M.A. Carrick. I love this book, and I would dare say if I had to pick one all-time favorite book of the year so far, I would definitely have this one in the running. Most assuredly. I mean, honestly, yeah, it would probably win. Favorite science fiction read of the year is going to be Morning Star, which is part of the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. It's book 3 in the first trilogy, and it just felt like Pierce Brown did something amazing with this one. The first book in the series had excellent pacing. The second book in the series had some really great action and character development, but it was a little too fast-paced. This one was a healthy mix of the two, and that I found is perfection. I loved this book. This book did things, y'all. It did things. But definitely, if I had to pick a favorite science fiction series of the year that I've been reading, it's going to be Red Rising. Favorite nonfiction read of the year, not that I've read that many, which I have got to work on, but my favorite so far is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl, and this is a book that every person should read. Every person should read. I will be reading it multiple times because I feel like there are so many stages of life and events that can happen or will happen that I think this will address and help and inspire and motivate. This book was amazing. And then to just combine my literary fiction and classic category, favorite read of the year, hands down, Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. In fact, this book made her become another favorite author, another one that I am working through all of her works. And again, I've not been disappointed by anything I've read by her. Another one that I plan to reread before the year is out. Are you sensing a pattern? Every one of these books I've mentioned so far as favorite reads of the year, with the exception of Morning Star. The other 4, Their Eyes Were Watching God, The Only Good Indians, Man's Search for Meaning, and The Mask of Mirrors, I'm already planning a reread before the year is over. They're really good books. Next question. Best sequel you've read so far in 2021. Now, I don't have the physical copy for my horror sequel that is the best, It's on its way. I have ordered it, and that is going to be book 5 in the Nightmare Land Chronicles by Daniel Barnett, which is City of Blood. I've been working on this series since he first started publishing it. The series is absolutely fantastic, but the only one that has come out so far this year in that series is City of Blood, and it just was phenomenal. I cannot wait for book 6. I feel that book 6 is going to top the other 5 for reasons I can't share if you haven't read Nightmare Land. If you haven't read it, oh man, I would definitely encourage you to read that. For best sequel in fantasy I've read this year, that would be Wizard and Glass, which is book 4 in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. This book is my favorite in the series. Right now, this one is in the running to be my favorite fantasy series of 2021. I don't foresee anything knocking it out, but it's possible because there are a couple of other fantasy series I have my eyes on to read that could knock it down, but we'll see. But as of right now, just what King did with the story in this one, I just absolutely loved. I just don't feel any of the other books are going to be able to top the beauty that I found in this one. So for science fiction, best sequel, I have to have a repeat here and say Morningstar by Pierce Brown for all of the reasons I already listed when I answered the first question. My classic and literary fiction genre best sequel. So this is probably cheating a little bit, but I'm going with Hitting a Straight Lick with a Crooked Stick. This is a collection of short stories by Zora Neale Hurston. And while it's not an actual sequel, there are a couple of short stories in this one that take place in the same town as Their Eyes Were Watching God. A sort of continuation, fleshes out some of the characters and their stories a little bit more. So I'm counting it. It's my tag. I do what I want. So question number 3. A new release you haven't read yet but want to. For horror, that is going to be Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca. This is a little novella that has come out recently. A lot of my friends have read it and really enjoyed it. It's blurbed by Josh Mallerman, who wrote The Bird Box. Eric's writing is top notch. I know I'm going to love it, so I'm very excited to get to this one. I hope I'm able to do so very soon. For science fiction, I haven't landed my hands on an actual physical copy yet, but that is definitely Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I've seen a lot of really great reviews. A lot of folks are comparing it to The Martian, which is my favorite book by him. So I'm hoping to get my hands on that one later this year and get that one read. And then for my fantasy new release that I want to get to is Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I know y'all are very confused as to why I haven't read this yet because I love John Gwynne. I haven't actually finished the Of Blood and Bone trilogy yet. I've started it, I haven't finished it. I've gotten all up in the middle of tons of other things and projects. After July, when August hits, I'm doing some cleanup. I'm going to get some series finished and I'm going to get to some new releases, dang it. But I've heard amazing things about this one as well. I mean, it's John Gwynne. The man can do no wrong. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So my horror pick is The Darkest Hours Expanded Edition by Mike Thorne. That is literally in transit to me right now. I pre-ordered that one a while back. Mike Thorne wrote Sheltered for the Damned. I love his writing style. It's very conversational. It's a great way of storytelling, in my opinion. So I'm very excited to get into that one. So for fantasy, that will hands down be book 2 in the Rook and the Rose series, which is the series that began with The Mask of Mirrors. You know, the book that I said I'm going to reread. So I'm going to reread it in November, right before the second book comes out at the beginning of December. Anticipated release for science fiction, that will be the 3rd book in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, which is called Lesser Evil. And then as far as literary fiction classic category, I don't have an anticipated release, but I do have an anticipated read. I am going to be reading Anna Karenina later this year, and I'm very excited to read that one. So I'm going to cheat and let that count. Question number 5, biggest disappointment. For science fiction, that will be Greater Good, which is the 2nd book in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, it did not hold up to the storytelling and momentum of the first book. There are things that happened that I feel did move the plot forward. I just really think this should have been a duology. I think what he used this book to accomplish could have been condensed and either included in the first book or in the beginning of the next book. I am hoping book 3 redeems the trilogy, but this one was just a bit of a miss for me. But as far as literary fiction and classic, biggest disappointment was Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I really wanted to love this one, and I did for about 300 pages. I just was not a fan of just perpetuating the cycle, the same cycle over and over and over. It just went on way too long. If this had been condensed into about like 350 pages, I 100% think it would have been much better, much more enjoyable reading experience, but it just wasn't for me. For horror, my biggest disappointment was The Final Girl Support Club by Grady Hendrix. I was very fortunate enough to be approved for the ARC on NetGalley. I had this book on pre-order already, but once I got halfway through the ARC, I canceled my pre-order. When I finished the book, it is not one I would ever reread. I did not have that much enjoyment out of it. I can't, at this point of filming, tell you anything else other than that because I'm not allowed to release my review until July 13th. But it was a huge letdown for me. So, question number 6, biggest surprise. I would have to start with Wise Blood by Flannery O'Connor. This falls into the classic literary fiction category. I had no idea I was going to love this book as much as I did. I think I was really shocked that it was a comedic approach to the exploration of what religion means to people and how they go about sharing their views. I just love this book. I think every time that I read this book, I'm just going to pull more pleasure and enjoyment out of it. This was my first experience reading Flannery O'Connor, and my expectations going in based off what I heard from people in the community and expecting something dark. And what I got was something that had me cracking up, had me thinking about it for days, and just really exploring what I thought the themes of the story were. So it ended up being a huge surprise for me. For science fiction, biggest surprise, The Dark That Dwells by Matt Digman and Ryan Roddy. This is book 1 in what they hope to be a 5-book series that they haven't named yet, but I think we're getting close to what they're going to call it. When I read the book description, read some information about the book and other reviews, I knew I was going to like it. I didn't know I was going to love it. Another one I plan to reread. I mean, I'm just going to quit saying I plan to reread these books because I just plan to reread all of them. So biggest surprise for fantasy ended up being the Dark Tower series, or more specifically, The Gunslinger. Again, another one that my expectations were set very low, and I really enjoyed it. I cannot wait to read it again after I finish the Dark Tower series. There have been so many small tie-ins in the subsequent books back to The Gunslinger that I've just been overjoyed anytime I found one. I'm sure I've missed some, so when I finish the Dark Tower, book 7, I'm going to go back and read The Gunslinger just to refresh my memory and see what I might have missed. For horror, that is 100% going to be Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. This book was a huge surprise in that I expected trauma. I didn't expect a female version of a coming of age story, and I really didn't expect the thread of hope that just weaved through this very traumatic tale. It was just beautiful. The prose was beautiful. It was just lyrical. The imagery was just some of the best I've ever read. I mean, there was just a lot of surprises about this book. And yet another, I said I wasn't going to say I was going to reread all these books, did I? So question 7 is about favorite new authors you've discovered in 2021, whether they be debut authors or new to me. And then all of these are going to be new to me, but with horror, that will be Stephen Graham Jones, no surprise. I'm blazing through all of his work. For classic and literary fiction, Zora Neale Hurston, another one that I am blazing through all of her work. Fantasy, Joe Abercrombie. I know these are no surprise to any of you that have been watching my channel for any length of time. He is another one I fell in love with on the first book I read by him. I am also working through all of his work. Finally, and most recently, another fantasy author, N.K. Jemisin. Finally got around to starting her work. I am in love. I was in love with the first book again, 5th season. Guys, I mean, when you can just fall in love with somebody in the first book you read by them, and with the first 3 that I mentioned, I have read several things by them, and I have without fail loved every bit. So when I got that same feeling with N.K. Jemisin, I can trust myself to know that these authors, they will forever be auto-buy. I will have everything that they've ever written in my collection, and I know that I will reread many, many times. So I really got a kick out of this next one, and it's question number 8, newest fictional crush. And while I have had an answer for every genre that I read in so far, there was only one for this one. And I know a lot of you have probably guessed who that is. And that would be the Darkling from the Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. I fell in love with this guy. He is a bad guy. He is definitely 100% the villain. I haven't finished the trilogy yet. I'm hoping to do so very soon. I don't care if he ends up being good or worse or whatever. Y'all. Question number 9. Newest favorite character. As far as science fiction, favorite character is definitely Severo from the Red Rising series. Howler for life. That's all I'm going to tell you, just in case you haven't read that series yet. For fantasy, I have to go with one in the Dark Tower series, and that would be Odetta, Susanna. And again, if you don't understand that answer, I can't explain it to you if you haven't read the Dark Tower. I just will encourage you to read that series. It is so wonderful and unique. It's a great experience. And the book where you meet her is the second book, The Drawing of the Three, and is 100% worth checking out. Question number 10, book that made you cry. And because I haven't read much John Gwynne yet this year, he's actually off the hook. And in his place would be Pierce Brown, Red Rising. I'm not going to name the character because that would totally spoil it for any of you who have not read the series. Those of you who have, you know who it is. You know why. And if you read this along with the Library of Alexandria and his Discord, then you know I've been very vocal about it there. So yeah, definitely the only books that have made me cry this year have been the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. So question number 11, book that made you happy. For classic literary fiction, I would have to go with Wise Blood, because when I tell you I was chuckling the whole way through, I really was. I found it hysterical. And then as far as fantasy that made me happy, it's going to be The Mask of Mirrors, because I enjoyed this book. It did make me happy. I loved the story, everything about it. I am still talking to people about this book in my Discord. People have been trickling in and starting to read it after I read it with a group in my Discord, and I have just been living for it. Everybody who read this book with me and my read-along, we have just absolutely been all over anybody that steps into that channel, and they're like, hey, I'm about to start reading this book. So, question number 12 is most beautiful book you've bought this year or that you received. And I have a lot. You guys have seen this book on my channel a whole lot lately. I've got a group that's reading it in my Discord. The Rave by J.R. Trask. It's the first book in the Outraver series. Yes, the cover is absolutely beautiful, but so is the story. Everybody who has picked this up and read it has absolutely enjoyed it. If you have picked this up recently, I think I have some folks that are going to be reading it in my Discord in July. So definitely come on over into that channel and join us as you read it. I also read Winds of Strife on my Kindle, and I was mentioning how much I wanted the physical copy because it had helpful charts in it I wanted to refer to. So the author sent me a physical copy, and this book is freaking gorgeous. Piranesi by Susanna Clark. This was sent to me by my friend Katrina, and while the cover is definitely pretty, the true beauty of this book lies in the hardback itself, which is just gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I haven't read this one yet. I'm very excited to get to it, so I'm going to be making plans on getting that one on the old TBR soon. And then next would be The Flashlighters by Daniel Barnett. It's book 4 in the Nightmareland Chronicles. I did read the ARC for this one last year, but I bought my physical copy this year. And Daniel Serra does all of the art for the books, or at least the first 5 have all been done by him, and they are just gorgeous. The 5th one is on its way. And then probably the most beautiful book I've purchased this year is Westlake Soul by Rio Ewers. The cover is gorgeous, right? But again, the beauty of this one, like it's the cloth bound, but it's signed and numbered for one thing, and then it just has gorgeous pages in it. It is illustrated throughout, and it's in color. Like, it's got red and black and all of that. Another one I haven't read yet. It was 100% a purchase because I have heard that it's amazing, and I want it to be one of the 400 to get the numbered signed copy. Let's see. Question 13. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Why are you calling me out, Tag? Like, all of them? All of them. I just don't even... My unread TBR is out of control. I'm not going to list all that off. I don't know. And it always changes. Like, I can tell you what books I want to read for the rest of this month. But as far as next month and after that, Well, I can cheat a little bit and say the Dark Tower series. Because there's only like 2 of those left that I need to read. But yeah, no, we're not even getting started on that. We'd be here all day long. And that'll do it, fam. That will take care of all of the questions for the mid-year book Freakout tag. That's always a fun tag to do, just to kind of check in and see kind of like where you are in the year, and just kind of remind yourself to look back through what you've read and remember what you did really enjoy. So I was looking forward to doing it. I had a lot of fun looking through all the books that I've read so far this year. I've read a lot. Like, this took some work. Drop on down to those comments down below. Tell me your favorite books, maybe your biggest disappointment. And with that, I'm going to sign off and put all of these books back up where I got them from and clean up this mess and get to reading. So guys, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed a little look back on my year of reading. I hope you have had a great start to your day. I hope the rest of your day is absolutely amazing, and I'll see you in the next one.